The Triumph of Death by Pieter Brueghel the Younger. He is one of three famous painters of that name from my country of origin, the Netherlands. The Netherlands. Might as well call that country hell, but the netherworld. Which reminds me that the Brueghels did change their surname, remove the H. I think maybe they didn't like the word hell in their name, but it makes a lot of sense. I don't actually believe, of course, that the Brueghels actually existed. This is these are just pseudonyms for a secret society producing our culture for us. But Bruch, is the Dutch and perhaps German word, Brugge, for bridge. So we have bridge to hell. And indeed, um, many of Brueghel the Younger's paintings are paintings that take you to hell. Um, this painting, by the way, is not his. This is one of mine from many years ago. Once upon a time, I was an artist. Oh, so many talents, and so little money. No, I am not dying on the street. Let's see what others have to say about Brueghel's famous painting, The Triumph of Death. There is the actual painting. I don't know how big it is. I hope it's large because it is full of details and I will need to zoom in extensively. So this is a little review, a very, what's the word, positive review of, oh, well, they always do positive reviews of masterpieces. I don't. The Triumph of Death, a haunting portrait that reveals humanity's remarkable progress. Really, I mean, this is a scene of, a macabre scene of death and more death and, well, yeah, I guess you could say that this is not my neighborhood now, so life has made a lot of progress. Doesn't that make sense? Yeah, as if this was your typical scene 500, 600 years ago. Well, no. He does, as many art reviewers and art historians do, claim that this painting is a depiction, metaphorical, figurative, I suppose, of the Black Death of the 1350s. Um, as we shall see, that is ridiculous. There is nothing in this painting that speaks of Black Death. There's no one with symptoms of the bubonic plague, no swollen lymph nodes, which, well, admittedly might be difficult to depict. But no, I think a good painter could do that. And there's no evidence here of anyone having a fever. We do have a fire and more fire, but that's not the same as fever. But well, maybe he can convince us if I read it with a little patience. Pieter Bruegel's masterpiece painting, The Triumph of Death, evoked a certain reality of the plague that many would sooner forget. Yeah, well, when allegedly 40% of Europe perished, that's Well, not easy to forget, but yeah, you might want to forget that if you lived through it. But I don't believe in it. History is a lie. Some people haven't figured that out yet. I begin. Pieter Bruegel's painting The Triumph of Death is a frightening work. Where's Waldo? Thank you for the stupid, trivial reference to trivial art. Of the 14th century apocalypse, the Black Death, not easily mistaken for the triumph of humanity over death. Indeed, this is death's triumph over humanity. An army of skeletons that mercilessly and indiscriminately scorch the earth. How is that related to the Black Death? It isn't. Pollute and deforest the land. Ditto. And corral and slaughter the villagers. I suppose the reviewer imagines that the skeletons are the Black Death personified. Bruegel's The Triumph of Death is a danse macabre, an artistic style of the late Middle Ages, and mode of expression for the fragility of life and the near certainty of a young and gruesome death. What is a young death? A death of the young, at the behest of an unremorseful natural order. Oh gosh, the natural order is so horrible. Just look out there and see those birds just raining down from the sky and the squirrels screaming in pain every 3 seconds. That's the reality. Well, yeah, I guess if you're Pieter Bruegel or the reviewer, Tony Morley, that is the natural order. Um, Maybe they live on a different planet. The Danse Macabre reflects the accepted reality of the time. Yes, right. The peasants and common people were terrified of the natural order. The pre-industrial condition of man was solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. I believe that's a quotation from a famous English philosopher whose name thankfully slips my mind. I believe he promoted the idea that humanity needs totalitarian monarchs because, well, we are nasty and brutish, so we need better people to make us better. So, yes, monarchs are those better people. And we have a monarch in this painting, but more on that later. However, Bruegel's work captures something altogether greater than the ceaseless vicissitudes and crushing living standards of pre-industrial civilization. I'm tired of hearing these myths about the past and this myth of progress. Please. And it's very simplifying to say the past was worse. We don't really know how different tribes managed and lived, but from what I can tell, uh, pre-industrial, pre-civilized peoples, forest peoples mostly, lived rather peacefully, um, didn't complain about missing televisions, were keeping themselves busy, occupied, relaxing, enjoying leisure. They were not working 8 hours a day. No, siree. The triumph of death captured perhaps the greatest event of mass human suffering in the history of civilization, the Black Death, which was before the Industrial Revolution and, excuse me, um, who knows what life was like in Europe before the Industrial Revolution. History is a lie, so I have spoken about it, but I think the ruling class, the aristocracy, had already monopolized most of Europe's land, maybe not by 1346, but well, I'm just speculating. Bouts of plague ravaged Europe intermittently from at least 430 to 1750. No proof of that except texts and, I suppose, some paintings. However, it was the period of the Black Death that induced the greatest suffering, claimed the greatest toll of life, and laid the groundwork for the fundamental transformation of the world's economic and social systems. Yeah. The Black Death actually produced progress. Imagine that. In because people learned how to create healthier cities, cities without rats. No, 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 no. It didn't inspire people to invent plumbing and proper sewage treatment. As conventional history goes, we had to wait until the late Industrial Revolution, just over 100 years ago now, before we got good, clean water in our cities. That doesn't seem to have stopped the rats. Oh, how ironic. A little more. In Bruegel's haunting work, as the skeletons advance, they lay waste to the landscape and slaughter the people. The villagers can muster no resistance as the massacre unfolds. A mother collapses her young child defenseless to fight off the skeletal dog. Yeah, there's lots of detail here, lots of detail in this painting, waiting to be examined. I will spare you the rest of this article and hopefully share some enlightening views. Let's begin. I'm switching to the Wikipedia um, image of this painting. It's higher quality, higher, you know what I mean. Here we have two, the original frame seems to be in this image too. It has two false pillars on either side. Perhaps a hint that secret societies, Freemasons in this case, are involved. Who else is creating our culture for us? Not people like me, not yet anyway. Okay, let's have a close look and start in the top left corner like a good Western reader. I have to do some more zooming. There we go. It's the that's quite clear. Two skeletons, each chopping a tree, busily at work, deforesting the land. Two more trees lie victim here, and in the distance, fires are burning. The land appears deforested, as the good reviewer explained. Um, Bizarre looking axes, but they did the job. Why is this important? It's important. It has nothing to do with the plague, obviously. Really, this painting should be called The Story of Civilization because it starts with deforestation, contrary to what we are told by historians. Civilization did not start with um, the civilized conquering the uncivilized, the native peoples of the world, through violence, through with war. And the concept really is absurd. I mean, try to play the story in my mind of Spaniards coming to southern Mexico and Central America, the eastern seaboard of the US, all these heavily forested areas. And what with their armor, perhaps their first guns, they're tramping through dense forests, trying to capture people who know the forest inside out, know what they can eat, find things to eat wherever they go, are very mobile. It's a no-win situation. There's no way they would be able to conquer native peoples that way. And even if they did, um, it would involve killing them. So you lose a potential, they would lose a potential workforce. So to me, it's quite clear that the conquest of native peoples around the world happened through deforestation, especially through eliminating the trees that produced the nuts and fruit on which native peoples depended for their lives. But really, all trees had to go. Deforestation was the first step to civilization. Without, once the forests were cleared, once trees were chopped and dry enough, they were burned, hence the fires. And once the burning was done, the soil would be quite rich, I suppose, with the charcoal, the ashes. The conquerors would want to use that land as pasture land, perhaps also as crop land, but especially pasture land. They were, they are very carnivorous. Everything alive looks like, well, everything alive and breathing looks like meat to them, I suspect. So there's the beginning of civilization right there. The civilization they created. And here we have two skeletons ringing two bells, church bells, not strung from a church, but nevertheless church bells. Um, as David Ewing, I believe, yes, David Ewing enlightened me on this subject. I had been wondering about bells. Now it makes perfect sense. Bells were installed during the Industrial Revolution when the rulers of this world needed a working class, a workforce that woke up on time, went to work on time, arrived on time, went to bed on time. And that was the sole purpose of bells. In the age before we had personal alarm clocks. Yeah, I know. It's not very wonderful to think about such a mundane purpose, a really evil purpose for bells. People prefer to fantasize that somehow they were producing frequencies that were healing and spiritual. Yes, people can have their fantasies. I'm here to, well, not destroy all fantasies. I have my own little fantasy. I hope it's a better and more realistic one. Two skeletons burying a poor soul. Skulls everywhere. What is this building here? It could be a church, could be a castle. It's not clear. We have a circular window on the right. Looks like it belongs on a boat, but it is curious and important because the skeleton in the center is radiating squiggly lines, and these wavy squiggly lines radiating from the center are highly reminiscent of the Jesuit logo, which has, well, a few more wavy lines, but this is highly reminiscent. Could it be another secret society that wanted to put its fingerprint on this painting? Um, and of course, the Jesuits are a religious order, so maybe this is a church. Who? It's so funny. We're burying a coffin in the roof of this church. Hmm. Topsy-turvy world. Something is inside here. I can't make it out. Looks like more black-robed figures. The black robes of the black robes of the Benedictine order. Could it be? Yeah, there's another pillar there. So yeah, we have two pillars again. That's for this one is barely visible. Uh, a cartload full of skulls and leg bones or arm bones. Where are they going? To the local ossuary or to the catacombs? These poor people are trying to escape by crawling underneath the wagon this with your leg through the wheel. That's not going to be pleasant. Here's the king I spoke of. His time is, I think, finished. Um, why he's wearing armor that is impossible to wear. It's too small. No one could fit in that, or certainly not move in that. Look at his shoes. Um, Very impractical. This myth about armor being worn by soldiers is, it's a myth. Yes, I mean, he's not dressed for war. You don't carry a scepter if you're going into war. Um, if you know about the sacrificial king ritual of the cannibals, um, I believe armor had another purpose. It's highly electrically conductive. It would, as is the crown, so it was probably used to help electrocute sacrificial humans. Uh-huh. Between two pillars, as I've explained elsewhere, the two pillars being the giant electrodes. Not all pairs of pillars were once electrodes, but I'm quite sure they once some functioned as electrodes for the sacrificial king rituals. What on earth is that black material there? It's a man hanging from the wall, a low wall, with is that a millstone, a grindstone, strung from his neck? Reminds me of the Gospels. Not sure exactly chapter and verse, but Jesus says something like, if you touch one of these children, may you tie a millstone around your neck and jump into the sea. Yeah, you'll have to do it yourself. And well, millstones were mostly giant things, so no, you wouldn't be able to jump into the sea with a millstone tied around your neck. So it was a joke, of course. The Bible was not written by people who cared about children. There's very emaciated people fleeing from even more emaciated canines. Giant skeleton, these bizarre poles with wheel-like structures on top. We'll see them again in a moment. Mm. Lots of crosses here and there. No one worshiping them. People hacking each other to pieces. Here are the people people hung from, what are these devices called? People just hung. Here are the two larger poles with wheel-like devices, and there are people on top. Why? I'll make a connection in a moment. Um, if we scroll down to this strange structure, it seems to be part of something that almost looks like a face, two eyes and a mouth. What was this? What is this part of? What does this hint at? Maybe a church. I've seen churches with circular windows. Hmm. Why does it have? I mean, that's not a regular window. These don't have glass. This one has glass. This seems to be a convex window. Well, I was very happy to discover this because I've argued and speculated really that um, the world cannibal cult that rules this planet once upon a time used the free energy of the sun to do its cooking. Tartarians should be happy to hear about that. Free energy? Haha. Not really, because, well, this is really, I suppose, I believe, meant to be, or meant to suggest what's it called? Magnifying glass. Magnifying glasses were used to magnify sunshine and beam it upon stone cookware, small and large, some large enough to hold humans. And that was how the cooking was done. I don't think they were attached to walls. Bruegel is lying a little. I believe they were hung from ceilings inside churches. A little bit like this water vessel is hung from the ceiling. Bruegel also made the connection for us because this triangle of fire and heat appears to originate from this magnifying glass, although it's backwards. It should be convex here, not concave, or maybe I've got it backwards. Um, Producing a lot of heat. And here we have one satanic, demonic creature, the only one in the painting. He does belong, he is normally associated with fire and heat. I'm not sure he is panicking. He doesn't seem to be on fire. Maybe he's celebrating, hands up in the air. Hey. And this is where the cooking is happening. Here we have a cage. Perhaps it was meant to hold a sacrificial human, although I don't believe cages were used for cooking. No, stoneware. Stone cookware was used. Here we have the remains of other animals. Post-eating, Well, some animals are still feasting on one, and this one is still mostly intact. So the cooking happens here. The hacking happens here. The butchery, the eating happens here. Not only humans, of course, animals of all sorts. Here's a cow, a horse, highly carnivorous people, those aristocrats that rule the world, had no interest in nuts and fruit. Well, there's another interesting scene, another allusion to the Gospels. We have, well, first two skeletons dressed in brown cloaks, maybe Dominican monks with black hoods. Well, it doesn't quite work, but yeah, it's creative painting, creative deception, creative confusion. Two skeletons here dragging a net containing one, two, three, four, five, six, maybe seven people. Hard to know exactly if it's six or seven. This is a reference to the gospel story that Jesus met his future disciples on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. They were fishermen, and he said to them, I will make you fishers of men. How nice is that? You don't need any special education. You know how to fish for fish. Then, well, you have the skills I need to capture, to capture men in the net of my holy lies. Yep, and then off you go to the world of the dead. It reminds me, there is a church scene here. A little church surrounded by skeletons, apparently, all with one arm up, celebrating or singing, who knows? What's that all about? Is that Brueghel saying, oh, God couldn't help the poor victims of the Black Death? Nope, this is not about the Black Death. The Black Death did not sink ships and set forests on fire. Brueghel is saying, I believe, if you have been converted, if you are a Christian, you are the walking dead. You are blind to reality and blind to the nature that gives you life. No, for you, everything is God and prayer. And you are easy pickings for the ruling class. Which is not to say that atheists are geniuses. No, you don't become a genius just by saying other people are stupid. All right. Um, yeah, nice scene here. Skeleton beheading a man. Appears to be dead already. Couldn't put up a fight against a skeleton. Come on. This, a child perished in the coffin, in its mother's coffin or father's. Lovely, lovely scenes here. Yeah, it's a masterpiece of ugliness. What else deserves comment? Oh, yes. Oh, yes, mustn't forget this scene of a mob running or being herded. Yeah, maybe they're being herded, eh? Herded into what? Into this dark box. Why would they go there? The inside of the door bears a symmetrical cross. Not a real cross, not a Christian cross. They didn't notice that. So who knows what was on the other side? Maybe there was a nice painting of Jesus saving their souls. Well, in any case, they're going in. It looks like a giant coffin. Poor peasants don't know any better. Um, this this man is falling, oh, being trampled, I suppose, or will be trampled. His hand is nicely juxtaposed about over the only really naked woman, her breasts specifically. Was that necessary, Bruegel? What's the point of that? Oh, yeah, sick people. Psychos, sickos. Eh, ooh, poor man being dragged to his death. Those skeletons are so powerful. Last scene that deserves some commentary. Um, at the bottom right, we have a table, a dinner scene, I suppose. And shrink, please. Shrink. There we go. These women, I think, are still trying to enjoy themselves despite everything. The Titanic may sink, but we will sing. Well, there's another fake event, the Titanic. We have a gesture here, maybe a backgammon game. Uh-huh. What is being served for dinner? I don't know what these things are. Is that a giant egg or are these pieces of probably large buns? The holy bread. Not sure what the little objects are. But in the center of the table, we do have a bowl with a skull. And arriving at the table, or maybe being removed, is a platter with a skull and two bones. Could that possibly imply a cannibal dinner? Cannibal feast? Oh no, not again. I have been accused of spending too much time talking about cannibalism, but really, I'm just explaining what's already here, what we like to ignore, and we mustn't ignore it. It is the reality of the people who, it is the tradition of the people who rule over us. Human flesh and adrenochrome, everything, well, themselves excluded, everything alive, breathing and moving is meat to them. Eich. Well, I hope that suffices to enlighten everyone about what Bruegel really is all about. Hmm. Excuse me. It's a masterpiece. This what's it called again? The Triumph of Death. It's a masterpiece of ugliness and hinting, perhaps, slightly misinforming. No, he didn't dare tell the truth, but what he did paint is a corruption of the truth, and we have to reverse engineer the truth from what we can, from all the hints and evidence we can find around us and in our paintings. The highlight for me was, well, the burning, the deforestation, and also this magnifying glass the heat it produces. Maybe it should be related to the men who were tied up on these wheels as if to be roasted by the sun. Well, enough. This suffices. If you're interested in learning more about this and many other subjects, you can contact me. And if you want to support me, purchase one of my books.